This is a little patch of woods here that I logged. You could say thinned. I mean, this is my property. So it's transitioning from a ratty, high-graded, just a really twisty rubbish forest into a homestead with various mixed use. I'm standing on a dozer right now, so elevation-wise, the camera's about 10 feet in the air. Now, initially, I cut this road, an access trail to get to the back. At the time, I didn't even know where my property boundaries were, and it was so dense you couldn't figure out where you were. So I started with a trail kind of down the center where I knew I was at, and some trees had to come out to make the trail. And with what I thought were my boundaries at the time versus what I thought were valuable trees, I was a beginner. I had been doing arborist work, so I knew I had been building saws and cutting firewood most of my life, so I knew about getting trees down, but I didn't know about manufacturing saw logs. Total difference between being just a woods guy, a firewood or tree removal guy, versus being a logger. A logger is a manufacturer of saw logs. Anyways, so this area, you could say that I high graded it in the sense that at that time I was desperately broke and needed money, so I was just one load. I mean, and it was a tiny, tiny load compared to what I haul now. But that first load that I hauled in and I saw what it paid, and I was like, nope, I'm not cutting another tree. Because the forest was more valuable to me than the crap money that they were paying. But this area was a full closed canopy with no brushy stuff, nothing but mature trees and twisty little shade tolerant. Mostly you saw brown leaves and a little bit of ferns. And this was actually an opening, this clearing right here, which is why it's got some bare ground, because this was where I was skidding logs to and bucking them to length and stuff like that. But this patch in here is regen, and I have cut that regen. So these are stump sprouts, multi-liter stump sprouts, but I have cut this off to ankle high or knee high numerous times with a clearing saw, a weed whacker with a blade on it. And the purpose is to thicken up the density. And this is an experiment. I'm not telling you to go out and run and do this. But, it's been about 7-8 years since I started this process here. 6 or 7. And I'm just kind of reflecting on it. So this is the outcome of getting a very bushy stand established. And how you do it, you got to get light. You take out some dominant trees, you leave some, you leave whatever you decide to leave. Maybe you're leaving your golden nuggets, your blue chip stocks that are going to pay for your grandkids to go to college. Maybe you're just leaving trees that are good for shade. That's up to you. But you pick your keepers and you haul off your removal trees. And then you start getting germination of grasses, briars, like what this is. And you're going to get acorns germinating. You're going to get seedling, original single stem seedlings. And you're going to get a lot of sprouts coming out of the stumps of the stuff you cut off. And there are a handful of species where each time you cut them, they divide. That head will, they'll go from 2 to 4 to 6 to 8. Just boop, boop, boop. They'll keep getting bushier. But they grow fast. There's a race here. If you can't tell, there's a race going on, because every little stem in here wants to go straight up. And what this does is it creates a situation where those single stems that we talked about, that I just mentioned, the acorns and the seedlings, those single stems, they are not allowed to bend. There is no bending in this patch. Will suffocate. This is a race to the death, okay? Any shade intolerant species, some people call them noble species, that's your oaks and hickories. It sounds like just 2, but that covers a lot of trees. Red oak and white oak, I think there's like 35 different red oaks. So there's a lot of trees covered by oaks and hickories. Oaks, hickories, walnut, they're poplar. These are shade intolerant. They have to go up. They have to get that canopy. They cannot bush out. They cannot get shadowed over. It won't take too long and they'll die. Now, that red one right there is a sourwood. These are all sourwoods. Sourwood is shade tolerant. It grows straight up if it can, but it will stay in the shade and survive, and that will snuff out that oak seedling. If the oak can't keep up with it, it will snuff it out. So letting these things that are essentially trash trees, I mean, that right in front of me, there's a black gum, really doesn't have any value. Not a bad tree. It's a good tree for wildlife. It's got a lot of value to it in my perspective, but it doesn't have timber value. Its value is shade. It's straight, and it's creating a situation where any little seedling is going to have to overcome the shade of that tree. It's going to have to grow fast. So the only ones that can survive this race are the best genetics. So this blanket of shrubbery, which to most people, this is terrible. This is garbage. Now, if you raise goats, you see the value of this, because this is feed. And this is feed that's not on the ground. You get worms when your animals are grazing on the ground, because that's where the worms are. When you got brush 4 feet high, 5 feet high, you ain't going to have worm problems. And if it's 10 feet high, so what? You let them strip the first 5 feet, and then you go out and you selectively bend over, snap off, cut off, and lay down the daily or weekly. Well, I wouldn't go a week. I'd go every day or every other day, lay down some more brush for them of a variety of different species. They don't like just one species. So not all maple or all gum. They like to dabble in all of it. But the point of the story is, while this looks like hell to most people, this is how you can thin / I dare say high grade. I hate that concept of high grading, removing the most valuable trees, unless there are full understanding of what you're doing. High grading is acceptable under certain circumstances. It's not acceptable under the circumstance where the logger in the mill wants good timber, the logger wants good money, and it's going to be the logger interacting with the landowner, where the logger convinces the landowner that this is good for the forest. That's bullshit. That's a lie. High grading is terrible for the forest. It just doesn't get figured out until a generation or two later, when there's just no merchantable timber growing on that land because it's all been removed, and what's been left is the rubbish. So that 30, 40, 50 years that you had to grow that time frame that you had to grow good trees, you were growing garbage trees. And then it's too late. It's too late. And who's got 50 more years to fix it? Even removing a bad forest is a major undertaking. Nobody does that for free. So what this brush blanket does is it allows me to ensure that the oaks and hickories and I don't have walnut, but if we did, walnut would be in that class too, and the poplars. This assures me that the trees that are let's just call them noble trees, those trees are going to be straight. Their form is going to be of high quality, because this blanket of competition does not allow survival of that type of species, the shade intolerance. It does not allow them to survive if they don't have good form. So if they're genetically slow or genetically bushy for some reason, they're not going to make it. They're not going to do well. This scenario is going to filter the seedlings. There could be thousands of them per acre. Could be 50,000 per acre, for all I know. But this scenario is going to filter them so that I don't have to. And as they get taller, when you've got them hitting 15, 20 feet high and maybe 2-inch diameter, you can put goats out in there, and the goats can clear the understory. The goats can clear the bushy stuff. You could do it with cattle too, but goats, this is their ideal. Cow doesn't love eating this, but they will. A goat wants this. So you get to walk out there when everything that you want to grow is above the browse line. You get to go out there and just eliminate the competition. You get to pick the winners and eliminate the competitors. And then things just start to change. The look, the feel, the dynamic, when you just feel like you're looking at a bunch of popsicle sticks or fence posts that have leaves on them. That's where you're talking about something that's gaining value. Every single year it's gaining value, and that's worth growing. And the forestry business needs people to be actively growing high quality timber. And the reward is for those who do it and do it well and stay in it for the long haul and get to that fat, clear, clean veneer. That's the crowning achievement, and it is compensated appropriately, believe me. What everybody thinks is that their rotten old Doty Twizzler forest is some jackpot. I got news. It's probably half of these forests out here are not worth the cost of harvest. So don't get your feelings hurt if some logger comes out and says, yeah, I can't make any money here, sorry.